I'm Julie Trejo. I'm a histotechnician for about 18 years. And over the years, I didn't know if that was a career I wanted or not. But after I thought about it, I just realized how much I love histology. So I went back to school and I got my bachelor's degree. I really felt like I needed to give this back to everybody else, all the other histotechs, and all the little tips that just might make it a little easier or a little bit better. So this is the way I came up with the smart way in histology laboratory. And I'm based in St. Louis, so I may have seen you if you were at NSH. Upon completion of this workshop, the participants actually should be responsible to apply the SMART objectives and the goals to the laboratory, how to obtain quality over quantity, and learn to apply small changes in the lab to reduce rework. Of course, everybody wants to know what's SMART about it. Well, it's an acronym. S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R, which is relevant and realistic, and T is time bound. I found this out when I was going to school for my degree, and they were using this as time management. And we all know in histology, yeah, we have to use time management a lot. Also, I also then went to a leadership conference, and they were talking about using SMART goals of career goals, and they were using the exact same acronyms. And I got to thinking about it, that this could really help histology as well. So we will go over this in a little bit. You want to say, why is this presentation called SMART? Well, I saw a TED Talk that spoke of NASA. They had spent over $12 million to make a zero gravity pen that can be used in space. Wow, $12 million. And they thought to make a zero gravity pen. And then Russia, they just used a pencil. I did look it up, okay, and it is said to be an actual hoax, okay? It's not true. But isn't that one of the best comparisons? As much as the brilliant scientists that come up with a zero gravity pen, but then even the true genius can use common sense just to use a pencil. That is smart to me. Now, I did, because I was digging around a little bit, and I did find a true statement from NASA. This floored me, and it is true that NASA lost a $125 million Mars orbiter because one engineering team used metric units while another used English units. They didn't convert. So this Mars orbiter, they wanted to land, but the units don't match, so it's lost in space. That's $125 million. It is said that the problem here with NASA was not the error. It was the failure of NASA's engineering and the checks and balances in our processes to detect error. That's why we lost the spacecraft. So this actually happened back in 1999. The checks and balances are various procedures that are set in place to reduce mistakes. They are used at NASA. They are used everywhere. We use them a lot in healthcare. But when you're paying no heed, it defeats the purpose. Most think they're better than using the checks and balances because they know they've got that. It's not a big deal. Well, it does. It can cost either $125 million or you're in healthcare, parts of people. Back in 2002, it actually occurred in 2001, but in 2002, CNN broke the news in St. Paul, Minnesota, that a young woman was diagnosed with aggressive cancer and had a double mastectomy. And 2 days later, as she was recovering, she was told it was a mistake and she never had cancer. That's startling news. It was a mix-up. There were two separate patient slides on one tray and two separate patient paperwork, and they were inadvertently switched. Now, no disciplinary action was done against the pathologist. The woman who actually had cancer was notified and has since been successfully treated. There were no disciplinary actions taken against the pathologist who made the error, since the person had no prior or subsequent history of errors. But I don't want you, and the pathologist at that hospital said, I don't think we should confuse accountability with discipline. This pathologist involved was the first person to recognize the error, to catch it, and to fully disclose it. This person is very accountable and cooperating in all respects with the hospital. That's huge. It's not just that she caught it. Can you imagine if this was not caught ever? And the woman who actually had the cancer could have died without even knowing. So catching it is a good thing. Now, this came out in my second year of histology training, and you can say it left a distinct mark on me in histology, and also probably as my mom had just finished her breast cancer chemo. She is a survivor, but from then on, I always try to think of the specimens as being my mom's. I mean, you can't say that all mistakes can just be balled up and thrown away. We're not desk jockeys. We're histotechs. These are people. So the U.S. News told us that the medical errors are third leading cause of death in the United States. And 10% of these deaths are due to preventable medical mistakes. That's huge. How can we reduce errors in healthcare? Or more specifically, for us, histology and pathology. A great book that was recommended during a state symposium years ago, Quality Management in Anatomic Pathology, back in 2005, says it's best. Reducing errors requires emphasizing doing a job correctly rather than quickly. Are these done correctly or quickly? You see the specimen, so you got that. Okay, doesn't look like any floaters. That's good. But it's just so dehydrated. There's chatter. If you really taking a look at that, if you just let it soak for just a couple more minutes, it'd be perfect. And there's part of my, okay, well, I will tell you that this is a medical term, which is called STAT. And it's meaning immediately, which is from Latin. Now, in histology, we do hear people saying to do it stat, but we all know that that's not really gonna work, because histology, we don't do anything super fast. We have to process tissue overnight. Biopsies still, it takes a couple hours. So, and depending if you have the staff that can do it. Histology stat is basically, we can put the case first in line to be embedded, cut, and stained, but it still has to go through the proper processing. So these are the factors that affect the surgical pathology. The factors, they're complex because it's the pre-analytic, the analytic, and the post-analytic. As the quality management and anatomic pathology books state, factors affecting surgical pathology turnaround time are complex because of the many steps in the pre-analytic, analytic, and post-analytic processes. As the pre-analytic is specimen procurement, specimen transport, and specimen accessioning, with ID and correction of errors. All are important pre-analytic factors that are not under the direct control of the pathologist. Analytic factors include how gross dissection and preparation are performed, whether residents, histotechs, and PA are involved in gross dissections, histology lab staffing, technology, instrumentation, slide preparation times, pathologist workload and efficiency, diagnostic complexity, and the need for special procedures. Extra time is necessary in the analytic phase for overnight fixation, decalcification, resubmission of tissue, obtaining recuts or blocks, IHC, molecular diagnostic test, electron micropsy, and consultations. While some aspects of the post-analytic processes may be influenced by the pathologist, mail systems, charting, and report interpretations are usually beyond the realm of influence of a pathology department. We have a lot of steps, and that can get overwhelming sometimes. When we're thinking of our days, I mean, here's our sign. We have processing, so we have to go through all of our different steps, because formalin fixes the tissue, but it's water-based. But the best thing to clear is xylene, which is oil-based. Water and oil don't mix. So we have to go through all these steps in processing. We have these with staining, which is the same. Your steps on embedding. It's not cut and dried as it is. I mean, show that embedding, should have the proper mold size, the orientation, the proper paraffin. Make sure that the plane is level. Everything is put on the same level. Remove the bubbles. Let it cool on a flat surface. Wait till it's cooled, and trim the excess paraffin. That's 9 steps. That's the thing, that we have multiple steps in everything that we do. So now we're back to it. So what do we do with all these steps? We use them SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. So when it's specific, what exactly will you do or accomplish? When you're embedding, and I do use embedding as a good visual example, but what exactly will you do? You're coming in and you have to work, and you get your tissues, and basically you take them off the machine and eventually you give it to the pathologist. But what do you do in between? You should look specifically. So therefore, embedding. Don't start thinking of cutting and staining. No, stay with what you have. This is what exactly will you do? Well, I'm going to embed. Well, what do I need to do? Well, make sure that you have the proper block. So that way it's not, if the tissue's up on the sides of the mold, then you can't see on the slide. You can't see all of the cells on the slide. Your tissue orientation. Take the time to make sure that they're oriented correctly. Measurable. How will you know your goal has been achieved? And I know a lot of people, when things are measurable, especially those in management, they always want the numbers. They want to look at, well, how many did you cut and how many did you have that? And these are great numbers, but it's also easier just to say, how will you know when your goal has been achieved? So your goal was to embed the block. Did I do a good job? Was it flat? Was it tissue oriented? Okay, did I have enough paraffin in the top of the cassette? Because that does help. So therefore, did I have to re-embed it? Did you have barely any paraffin in the top of your block and you have a bone and it pops out very easily? It doesn't have the paraffin support that's supposed to be there. So these little parts could help it to fill the back of that cassette with the proper paraffin, and then it shouldn't pop out as often. Some just definitely want to get out. But any repeats, why rush just to get them done, and then then you have to turn around and you have to have them re-embedded because they're not on a staircase levels of having the tissues flat. They're on the wrong side. They were cooled on the side. So now if you cut it, then you're going to cut it all the way. It's very tricky of things that we do. So make your goal measurable and quantifiable. Make sure that this makes it good and it's meaningful, because it will make you happy. This is for a patient. This is not just, I'm rushing, I'm having a bad day. No, I'm doing this for this person. I'm making sure that this is okay for John Doe. So measurable is the quality. Did I give good quality? Was it rushed? Do I have any regrets about it? Was there any rework? And if so, why? These are things to measure. Unattainable. Is the goal within your ability and control to achieve? So, okay, you need to embed 100 blocks. Okay, that's your goal. Is it within your control? Are you limited on time? Are you limited on paraffin? What it is? What is it that you need? So if not, you need to do what you need to do. You need to get more time, or ask for help, or get some more tools. There's some great I finally found some tampers that I like, which are awesome for prostate cores. I mean, I barely have to face the block in at all because it's so flat. But these help. And if you're even having a problem, if you're having a problem, look into it, change it, validate it, because then it's better controlled and better quality. Relevant and realistic. Keep your goals relevant, like due dates, prioritize, and your issues at hand. Be realistic. No more what ifs. Just use a pencil. I've seen colleagues being overwhelmed with the day's work when they see the volume of the blocks, the amount of orders of recuts, specials, immunos, send outs, everything else. It can get overwhelming. But a lot of this, it's keep your goals relevant. Okay, your due dates or your due times. When do your routines need to go out? So you need to focus on that. Don't start worrying about the send outs. You need to get your routines out first. Then you can focus on other things. And so therefore you need to prioritize. Keep them moving and keep the issues at hand, because before you blink, it's done well. Also, the relevant and realistic is also, will achievement of this goal help you move toward your career goals? Now, I know that doesn't work on your everyday life, but that's always good for what each person is looking for, what they want to do. They can look at what they want to do that day, that week, or so on. Or if they're looking for, maybe I don't want to go into management, but I really want to get a little more education on immunos. I really would like to work a little bit more on the P16. I'm not really sure about that. That's a great goal, and move toward that goal. And these effective goals, they're challenging enough to stretch your abilities, makes you happier, and therefore a better person. And T for being time bound. By when will you accomplish this goal? Which, of course, your daily routine completion time, your turnaround time, any requirements, pathologist request, supervisor's request. These are all the things that you need to not only look at what they are, but you also need to be realistic about it. It's one thing for one person to say, okay, I need this in an hour. Well, sometimes it just can't be done. I've had pathologists come say, I need this in an hour. I can't do that. It's physically impossible. But I can tell them that physically impossible. I can't do that because it takes this long to, let alone to cut, but to dry and then to de-pair and do the stain. And it's just physically impossible. But I can say, okay, it takes this long, and if I tack on 15 minutes, then I can tell you, okay, this is when it'll be done by. And they're happy with that. That's what they want to know. When you're accomplishing this goal, have to know when you can't just say yes to everything. You have to know what you have and what you need to make it happen, and what you need to tell them, I need more time. So here's the quality versus quantity. So we have the one placenta that is perfect. It's all on the same plane. They're proper orientation. You look at the other side, and we've got big bubbles in the middle, if you can see on the top, which, of course, if you have a bubble, then you're going to have, sometimes you can cut without a problem. This one itself is not horrendous, but for the fact, with it being too close to the tissue, that is a problem. The other one shows how far back it is. And on this other one on the right, in the block, the one on the lower left, tubes are on the side. So therefore, you're not going to see the lumen. So really, looking at this, your quality is a whole lot better than the quantity, because all three of those have to be re-embedded. So, and how long does it take to melt? 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending, and then you re-embed, and then to let it cool, and then you have to start all over. So you've got at least 30 minutes. You just tacked an extra 30 minutes on that. So therefore, your efficiency is not helping. And here you go. To slow down, calm down, don't worry, don't hurry, trust the process. Histology processes are complex. They're long, but trust it. It's there for a reason. There are times that we do try to rush it, and sometimes you can get by with it. Sometimes really bad. Okay, stop the line. We were talking about the domino effect, and shows you the domino effect, but that red domino is saying, stop the line. I am not going to do this. Stop the Line is actually a Veterans Affairs VA-wide initiative that empowers VHA employees to speak up immediately if they see a risk to patient safety. Launched in 2013, this awareness campaign encourages employees to report behaviors, action, or inaction that might result in errors or patient harm. I like to highlight this because this speaks volumes. To report behaviors, action, or inaction, because otherwise, if you see that it's not being done, it can still be affected all the way down the line. So you need to stop the line and have no patient harm. This is also a way to eliminate the chance for errors. And this is a big thing in my years of experience in histology labs. A lot of people would say, oh, it doesn't happen very often. Yes, I understand that, but why are you allowing it to happen? Because if you know what happened, why don't you correct it? Here it shows that this shows you the chart of how you have the likelihood on the bottom and the impact on the side. Well, it shows right here that if you can actually remove all chance for errors. And I'll give you another analogy. My son has a severe nut allergy, and we don't take any risks. I mean, his peanut allergy is off the charts. We cleaned out our house, and it is now nut-free. It can't even have nuts that are made in the facility. We have to check all the time. But we like it because he likes it because our son likes it because he can come home and he can breathe. Because he knows by having no nuts in the house, he doesn't have to worry about there being an accident like once every 6 months. No, it's not going to happen. So you see on this chart, there's none, 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 because they're completely gone. He does not have to worry about it. I actually spoke to a symposium, and somebody spoke up and they said, I clean the forceps in the cleaning cycle of the processors every day after we're done. Okay, I mean, that sounds great for that day, but what if you do not wipe your forceps in between each case? You are allowing a chance for errors. You're having bloody specimens, your EMB or ECCs, prostate. I mean, if you get crumbly brain, you should clean it. And not only, your forceps should be flat, not serrated, because the serrated really picks up the dry material and it can just stick in there and you just can't get it. 20 blocks later, it'll finally loosen up and plop into somebody else's case. And that's how all of a sudden you have a floater in your block. We make sure that we have flat forceps, and I still wipe them after every case because I do not want a chance. I don't want one at all. All of this can apply to histology, especially due to the multiple steps in every step, just like this, your tissue containment for another patient. So you don't know if this is from the forceps. You don't know if this is from the embedding center surface. Sometimes in my life, I go to embed and it's already dirty and there's all kinds of tissue all over the embedding center. You should clean it. Clean it before and after. And I do. I clean it out so that way I don't have to worry about ever having a floaters again. Oh, how about stopping the line? Do we stop here? When you're embedding, this is raw. This is very raw. Do you just go ahead and embed it? I don't see a point in that because this is a guarantee that even if you embed it and you cut it, you're going to end up with a big hole in the tissue. This is where you also should look at your program, your FAT program. You should change it and validate it. If your cassettes are too packed into the racks of the processors, they need to have space in between for reagent exchange. Also, you can also just let this one sit in paraffin for a couple hours. Sometimes that helps a little bit. And then we can still put that one out that day. But this is what the pathologists are looking for. We're supposed to, when they cut that tissue, they want to look at that tissue. But from this picture, you're only going to show maybe half. Or do we stop here? This is just not placenta, this is uterus, but being processed all scrunched up in the, too tight into the racks of the processor. They're not exchanging the reagents. All of a sudden, you'll find one that's just still raw. So do you stop there? What do you do to correct that problem? Or do you just continue? That's the inaction that can go into patient harm. If you see this that keeps happening, this needs to be, you need to fix it. Or do you stop here? I mean, the orientation is needed. I mean, it looks like, this one really looks like it's got the stair steps because you've got it at 3 different planes. Maybe somebody needs to go through another training of embedding. This is what could help. Now, this block, this was already filed and someone should have stopped. But this placenta was cut but yet you can see the one down the lower left, it's on its side and it's not even cut into. So we're putting tissue into cassettes that are not being cut or stained, and that is defeating the purpose. Or on this control slide, when you have, you're making your controls, which can not be so much fun sometimes, but to put the tissue half on the label, half off. Are we gambling? Because it's really just a 50-50 chance that the control will work. Or if you were that's where it would be positive because it could be up on the label. And it kills me how some people look at it and they may not use it, but they put it right back into the box. No, you just need to throw it away and to use it a little bit better. All your reagents are costly, the time. So then if it comes out good, well, shoo. But if not, now you're going to have to repeat all the reagents, all the time, cutting it again, which you could have cut past the tissue of what they're actually looking for. This can lead to patient harm. So I really do want to stress that every individual in the department should be convinced that maintaining quality at each step leads to the best possible outcome. You need to be specific at each step. You need to be measurable at each step. You should be attainable at each step, relevant at each step, and timely. Once again, these are all of our, and I just threw some of them on there. I'm sure there's a lot that is also missing as well. But these are all our steps, and they take a lot of steps and a lot of time. But we need to be taking our time to don't hurry. Higher quality would also give you greater efficiency. And I love that every step counts. Now that you're done, you should apply the SMART changes in your lab. Work with what you're doing at that time. Don't rush through embedding to get to cutting, to rush to staining, to rush case assembly. It's not, you should be specific with what you're doing at each station of where you are. Make sure you have quality. It may take a little bit of extra time, say maybe 5-10 minutes, but in the long run, it'll save you 30 minutes to an hour of having to do rework. And you can measure that for any rework that is done. Attainable, your time, your tools, and networking. Networking is huge. I love how I've met so many new people and I have learned so much. And all histotechs, we would love to help anybody else. So if you ever have any questions, you can call or looking up on NSH, or I have my email on here. You can ask me any questions. Attainable is very good, and it can uh, answer the question that you wanted to know, that you can make it better in your lab. To be relevant or realistic, you have your effective goals, and make sure that they are relevant. You don't want to put too much big on a goal that might take you 10 years to get there. Use them smaller, a lot smaller. It also gives you it feels very good when you can accomplish each goal, and then you're time bound, so you can keep it going. Also, on applying small changes to the lab, and this is just in every lab, I'm sure they say, you just need to clean up before and after yourself, from when you're grossing, embedding, microtomy, cytology. No floaters, because these are legal issues. It's a little scary of when you're looking at breast core and all of a sudden you've got a colon. That's not colon tissue. That's not good. So take it one at a time. When you're grossing, make sure that there's no mix-ups. Accessioning, do it one at a time. Embedding, open each cassette one at a time, because you do not want to get anything switched. One slide at a time, one label at a time, and no mislabeling, because those are legal issues. For slides, for case assembly, it's always best to have two people, the one who cut, and then have somebody else put them out, because these are a different set of eyes, and this is where your checks and balances come, and therefore, if there's any mistake, they can be corrected before it even got to the pathologist, and so that way it wouldn't even affect the patient. Remove all slight chances of having a mistake. It's easily said and done to say, oh, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Well, if you do not change the process, you are more apt to make another. And also notice your outliers and follow up. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people who they notice the outliers all the time, but nobody does it. So you need to step up and open the communication. Speak to everybody about it. Make sure that it's done. And I liked it. Clean up after yourself. Keep your lab station and equipment clean, neat, and organized. And this again is a nice little SMART picture. So, and that ends my webinar on the SMART goals in the laboratory.